It was sunk by a U.S. submarine in July of 1942.
This is an enduring and a painful maritime mystery, the location of the Montevideo Maru stretching back 80 years. The disaster affected more than a dozen countries from Scandinavia to Japan, New Zealand, the United States, and also here in Australia. It was estimated that 979 Australians were on board the Japanese transport ship. It was Australia's worst maritime disaster.
The following program is sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Get ready with your legal questions and call Patrick now. 877-943-9673. Again, that's 877-943-9673. The law office is open. And now your host, Patrick Smith.
Oh, hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, the Attorney Patrick Smith, and I'm proud to be with you another hour. This Saturday, April 22nd, we will be with you for the next hour to answer all of your legal questions. So give us a call now, 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. Here at the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, we always work very hard to make sure that we bring you an action-packed hour of legal knowledge and discussion, and I think that this particular episode will do just that one more time. So we are so happy that you've decided to join us today, and we encourage you to be part of our legal discussion. 877-943-9673. For those of you new to the program, again, my name is Patrick Smith. I'm a local Central Florida attorney with offices throughout the state, and we are here every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 to answer all of your legal questions, and no legal question is off limits. You can call in with a question on maybe my primary practice area, which is wills, trust, and estates, probate, trust administration, or you call in with a question on personal injury, family law, criminal matters. We will field your question as best we can, and our promise to you, if we can't give you the best answer, we will put you in touch with someone that can, maybe an attorney that practices in that particular field, or maybe your question is more geared towards a tax professional or financial advisor. We work with a network of those professionals as well, and we'll be happy to put you in touch and assist in giving you the peace of mind that you desire. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of today's show. We would encourage you to call in. And again, welcome to all of our brand new listeners joining us for the first time. I'm going to pick up where we left off last week, discussing the DeSantis versus Disney battle, because there have been some recent developments there, and they were sort of proving our predictions accurate. If you remember last week, we talked about sort of the maneuverings with the governor taking away the special exempt status for Disney's Reedy Creek Improvement District, appointing a new board that's appointed by the governor, and then the outgoing board basically putting in perpetuities clauses to outmaneuver the governor. Well, according to the Miami Herald, the Disney versus DeSantis fight headed into round 3 on Monday, as Florida's governor announced that the legislature will revoke development agreements that undercut the authority of the new local board he appointed, and he will impose new regulations on the powerful entertainment company. So we all saw this coming. It's just going to be a matter of who is going to make that final chess move and produce a checkmate. And then we'll talk about who the potential winners are in this situation. The Miami Herald goes on to say the announcement comes 2 days before the newly named Central Florida Tourism Oversight District Board of Supervisors is scheduled to review a new proposal to strengthen its authority over planning, zoning, and land development. Now, the arrangement removes the DeSantis board authority over land use regulations, restrictions on things such as building heights and future projects, including the potential regulation of 2 new theme parks allowed in the agreements. DeSantis, who has also ordered his inspector general to investigate, suggested the move was corrupted by, quote, self-dealing and other ethical violations. So here we have a situation where the governor is going to turn to the legislature and ask for them to provide some sort of relief in light of the maneuvering by the outgoing Disney board. So stay tuned on how that's going to conclude. But all legal commentators included in this article seem to think that it is leading to some sort of legal battle over property rights, maybe First Amendment issues. And one thing's for certain, it's not going away because neither side appears to concede. And I guess that's where we land this plane in this discussion is, are there ever going to be really any winners in this? It just kind of feels like everyone's losing. I mean, it certainly seems to be affecting the governor negatively, at least in a potential presidential bid. It seems to be affecting Disney negatively, and it's certainly affecting the state of Florida negatively. So I think it's one of those situations where maybe everyone involved in the conflict needs to just put Floridians first and sort of put this conflict to bed and say there's really no winners here. So maybe you have a thought on that. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. You can give us a call now with your opinion on the Disney versus DeSantis update as far as the governor reaching out to the legislature for additional support in getting around the last-minute maneuvering by the outgoing Disney board at Reedy Creek. So 877-943-9673, or email me your question, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Again, you can email 24/7 or live during the show. We'll do our best to answer your questions live on the air. Patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, or give us a call now, 877-943-9673. I wanted to follow up. One thing I love about the Attorney Patrick Smith Show Nation, you guys genuinely care about each other. And last week we had a caller from Largo named Frank. And Frank had lost his significant other of a very, very long time. And Frank opened up to us a little bit about that and about how, it's difficult. And a lot of you out there can relate because you've lost a widow, or you've lost a spouse and you're now a widow or widower. And it's not easy adjusting to that new normal. And we actually had a listener email in a support group. If you're out there and you are struggling, I tell my widow and widower clients all the time, one of the best things you can do is talk about how you're feeling. And sometimes it's with a good friend, a pastor, a professional mental health counselor, but make sure you're talking about it with someone, because there is something magical about just getting those emotions out. So we had a listener who heard Frank from Largo's story and reached out and said, hey, just so you know, the First United Methodist Church in Tarpon Springs offers free weekly grief counseling. So if you're in the Tarpon Springs area and you are in need of some sort of grief counseling because you're struggling with a loss or some sort of grief in your life, you're not alone. And the First United Methodist Church at 501 East Tarpon Avenue, Tarpon Springs, offers free grief counseling. So feel free to reach out to our show and we'll be happy to provide you the information, or reach out directly to the First United Methodist Church there in Tarpon Springs. And if you're aware of other grief groups that are out there, please email me. We'll be happy to announce them on the air. Too many people hurting out there right now for us to not do everything we can to help them. So we see it daily at the office, with widows and widowers, and it's a struggle. So if you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of today's broadcast. I'm Attorney Patrick Smith, and this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. We're going to go first to Tampa and talk to Roger. Roger, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Roger.
Good morning. You brought up a great topic for me. I was born and raised in Florida and been here a long time, and I have read over and over this feud between the governor and Disney. And I swear I still don't understand what they did to maneuver. I lived in Orlando, and I know that they had Reedy Creek and all of that. I don't understand what they did at the last minute. If they have their own board, what happened from there?
So they put in a perpetuities clause that basically said all of these regulations they passed last minute would stay in effect until the death of the last member of the royal bloodline of King George, I think was the exact language. So it's a perpetuities clause, basically saying these provisions stay in effect until the last member of that bloodline passes. Now, in Florida, there's other ways to measure perpetuities, and it actually has a weird kind of overlap with estate planning. In estate planning documents, we have to draft wills and trusts that do not violate something called the rule against perpetuities. But here, it's almost like the board was finding a way to manipulate this perpetual clause in their favor, and they appear to have done so, at least in the short term. So that was basically it. They saw the governor coming in with his appointees, so they decided to attempt to tie the hand of those new appointees by putting in place regulations that were in perpetuity, so that no matter who was appointed, they couldn't change everything for the foreseeable future, no matter what power they had.
So in other words, Disney had their board, and in their clause that they signed, I don't know, they opened in October of 71. They turned around and said, well, you can't change anything until the last member of our board is gone.
So it wasn't the actual Disney board of directors. This was Reedy Creek Improvement District, which were all Disney employees, is my understanding.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and essentially that board was the one that passed the regulation saying, look, regarding land development, regarding zoning, regarding building heights, all of that, we're locking it in, and we're going to go ahead and set it under this perpetuities clause so that no new board can change anything, given the fact that it's under this perpetuities clause. That is specifically what the governor is challenging now, and he's appealing to the legislature, who, by all past indicators, will be more than happy to help. And remember, the other critical thing aiding this fight for the governor right now is the fact that the legislature is still in session. I believe they're still in session until May 5th. So there's some time left on the clock, so to speak, for the legislature to act to possibly change the game here in the governor's favor. And that's what we're waiting to see. The governor's almost certainly not done maneuvering in light of this. And I think that the legislative response that we're going to get is going to tell us, how heavy of a blow it is. But Roger, let me ask you this question. So let's change the facts for a second. Let's say it's not Governor Ron DeSantis. Let's just say let's make it a New York governor. Okay. And so a predominantly Democratic state, New York state governor. And let's say the business is a historically conservative business. So just make up a historically conservative business in your mind. If the governor of that state went after a private business, do you think a lot of conservatives would support that, or do you think they would cry out against it?
They would not support that.
Well, then what justifies it here? I mean, you have a government body. I mean, if it's a Republican or a Democrat in the seat, isn't this an example of the government potentially overreaching into the private business sector?
It absolutely is. Disney's the biggest employer in the state of Florida. They pay a lot of money. They have a lot of influence. They got their own attorneys that sit up there in Tallahassee and manipulate every tax word to their favor. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're doing what they're supposed to. The one thing that I'm trying to understand is when they originally set this up, the state of Florida agreed to it. So they were able to change that within the rule because they had already had an agreement. I get that part. You're 100% right. Everything you just said. I'm a conservative, and I absolutely would be against them doing that with anybody. This is not anything to do about Disney. This is all about the politics behind their "Don't Say Gay" law that the governor had. I remember when it happened. That's what this is all about.
And here's my thing with that. So, okay, so the legislation at issue, which was the Parental Rights Protection Act, essentially, this is a battle. I don't understand what the governor was doing with either thing, with the legislation or with the Disney battle, because here's the thing. All this was going to do was reach out to parties that are already identified as a strong part of your base. I don't know who you think you're adding to your support by passing this sort of legislation. I'm not saying everything that a governor does needs to be politically motivated, but this almost seemed detrimental because it does sort of, put him further right than someone who's potentially seeking higher office when they typically go, more middle of the ground to try to appeal to moderates and people on the other side of the aisle. This I just don't get this maneuver. I don't understand where the win is here.
There is no win because the governor, I love DeSantis, in this particular move, I like what he did. It doesn't make any sense. Totally, I agree with you. Doesn't make any sense. But what this has is they got rid of the CEO that was in place that got in the middle of all this. And we could go on for hours about the whole population of the people that work at Disney. And this is a small group of people that started this conflict. The CEO jumped on board with it. It got DeSantis upset. He went after this. And if you notice, Disney changed their CEO. So this would have never happened under Bob Iger to begin with. But I don't think there's a winner either. I totally agree.
Well, Roger, there's definitely a loser, and the loser at this point appears to be the state of Florida. And I think that's where both sides need to come together. Disney and the governor need to say, look, we can all agree that the state of Florida should come first. And put that as the centerpiece of resolving this and putting it behind everyone so that everyone can just move forward, as opposed to wasting a lot of time, energy, and money and potential attorney's fees in battling this.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you explained that, and I appreciate that.
Well, Roger, we appreciate you calling in.
Multiple times. Thank you.
All right, Roger. Have a great Saturday. Thanks for calling in. 877-943-9673. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. You can give us a call now if you have a legal question of any type, or if you want to give your commentary on the Governor DeSantis versus Disney battle. We're sort of doing our 2.0 episode on that, and then we'll probably leave it alone for a while unless there's relevant updates. There have been rumors of maybe a talk between political officials and executives at Disney. If that ever actually happens and we have anything to report, of course, we'll bring it to you here as quickly as we have it on the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. So give us a call now with your legal question or your insight on the DeSantis versus Disney battle. 877-943-9673. Our next caller, we're going to go to the Joanne in Sarasota. Joanne, welcome back.
Good morning.
How are you today, Joanne?
Well, I finally realized that this Disney thing is a morass of legal entanglements, and it takes an attorney to understand it. But what about the fact that Disney gets to assess its own property for taxing purposes? There's a lot of things that need to change with Disney. And let's not forget they have gone way afield of their original mission under Walt.
Well, okay, we can agree on that, but let's circle back to something you said that I just don't believe is accurate, Joanne, because, and I'll explain why. Prior to going to law school, I actually spent a brief stint working at the Walt Disney World Corporation. And guess what department I worked in?
I don't know, taxes?
The property tax department. And I'll tell you right now, Disney does not get to assess their own taxes. The property appraisers will come in from the respective counties. I believe it's just Orange and Osceola here in the state of Florida. And they will assess a tax based on that. So Disney doesn't get, at least unless something has changed, my understanding is still the property appraisers have authority to come in and assess the tax and the tax rate for Disney property.
But that statement was not rebuked, so something's not right. You know, the tail wagging the dog, or which is it, you know?
Well, let me ask you this. So, Joanne, you can wave a magic wand. Let's give you all-encompassing power. And how do you fix this issue?
Well, I agree with what you say about private corporations, but this is a bit more than just a private corporation.
How so?
Pardon me?
How so?
Because they wield such power, financial power, and all sorts of clout. Now, it does operate in the state of Florida under the laws of the state of Florida, while the governor may not have all his information. Or, you know, let's face it, you attorneys understand it better than anybody else.
Well, but us attorneys are also trying to make sure that the populace in mass understands the issues here, and that's our goal and why we're discussing.
Not go anywhere, but I just think that they do have too much power, that they call the shots, more or less. You know, you say the property appraisers come in. How much influence does Disney wield? I don't know. Okay,
so let me ask you this, because this is a fair point, and it's one worth ferreting out. So, Joanne, if Disney does not come out in opposition to any particular legislation proposed by the governor, do you think the governor still takes this course of action just because, like you said, this is a private corporation that has simply grown too powerful in the state of Florida?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, they don't need to be adversarial. As you said, they need to sit down and agree to modify what needs to be modified. But I just think, that's all I can say to you. I'm not an attorney. I don't understand it all. I listened to your previous call, and it was very enlightening. And if it was a simple private corporation, Okay.
Well,
But look at the legal maneuvering they pulled on the board.
well, let me ask you this. So let me ask you you mentioned Roger, our prior caller. Let me ask you the question I asked Roger. If you flipped this around and we're in a predominantly Democratic state with a Democratic governor picking on a more conservative conglomerate powerhouse private business, do you still feel the same way about it?
That's a hypothetical that I cannot answer.
Well, you just did. I mean, that's an answer.
Beg your pardon?
I said you just did. That's an answer.
I see. Okay.
Joanne,
I still think Disney's too powerful.
so
I do. They get privileges that nobody else does. Let's talk about lowering the water table over there. That's another one.
well, to Roger's point, shouldn't they get some special privileges considering
Of
the fact
course.
that they're the state's largest employer?
Well, you know what? I think tourism, and I don't, Disney's not very affordable anymore for the average family. They've even admitted they have to lower the price of their tickets for the average people to come in there.
Well, and it looks like it may only be getting more expensive with tax rates going up. Those are ultimately going to get passed along to the consumer, the guest attending the park.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen in the end. I'm sure we don't want to kill a goose that lays a golden egg.
Well, I think
But
you just
a lot
said
of other
it.
golden eggs here in the state.
Well, and I think you just said it. I think the eye needs to be kept on the prize, and the prize being the state of Florida and keeping it the shining gem that it is. And this battle does not do that. So I agree with you. Both sides need to compromise and put this issue to bed. But as always, Joanne, thank you for your very thoughtful
Welcome.
insight.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great Saturday.
Bye.
877-943-9673. Give us a call now. We're live and local answering all of your legal questions. 877-943-9673. You can give us a call now. Open phone lines. We'll get you and your call right on the air. 877-943-9673. No, they came to me this week when we were doing show prep about that. If you flip the facts and you change the parties involved and the opinions expressed, and I'm just kind of shocked at how many conservatives sort of, because it's a conservative governor, sort of say, oh, this is fine because it's a conservative governor supporting a conservative viewpoint that I agree with. But it's still, I mean, listen, I was raised during the Ronald Reagan years. So, it's the scariest words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I just have a hard time when I see government anytime invading or pressing the private sector and private industry. And that's just because of my Reagan-esque upbringing. I just have this healthy sort of, let's keep the bright line distinction. The government stays over here and the private sector stays over there. And right or wrong, I mean, that's just my natural inclination. You can call in and convince me otherwise. But at the end of the day, it's a situation where, regardless of the politics, pull up to 30,000 feet and look at the intrusion by a government entity onto a private sector over a private opinion that they express. Do we really want to establish this precedent that if you express a private opinion that the government does not agree with, they can take action? I don't know that that's a good thing for the state of Florida, and I don't know that it's a good thing for our United States. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. And while we're getting calls queued up, let me do a couple of thank yous. First of all, thank you to the Military Order of World Wars that invited yours truly out to speak to them this past Thursday. Absolutely fantastic event. Everything was first class, and always enjoy speaking to a group of our honored veterans of these United States, and absolutely great question and answer session. So again, thank you to Bob and Judy and Charlie and everyone down there who played a role in inviting me and booking me for the Military Order of World Wars. And also, as an upcoming, we have new speaking engagement opportunities for you this week. This one is actually an estate planning webinar. So no matter where you are in the state, you can sign up to attend this free event, estate planning webinar. This will be hosted by Natasha Kars with Morgan Stanley, and it will be hosted this Thursday, April 27th at 5 p.m. If you want to RSVP, you can reach out to my main office line, and we'll put you in touch with Natasha's office so that you can get your spot reserved. Again, the office line, if you would like to attend our free estate planning webinar hosted by Natasha Kars with Morgan Stanley this Thursday, April 27th, 5 p.m. Call my main office line. That number is 877 754-6764. Again, that toll-free office line to schedule your complimentary consultation with me at any of our offices, Sarasota, Sun City Center, Clearwater, or to reserve your spot at our upcoming estate planning webinar, 877-754-6764. We hope to see you there, and we're looking forward to a rather large turnout for this webinar, because I think a lot of people are still trying to take it easy with joining large crowds. So if you're in that group and you want to hear the presentation, but you're kind of nervous about being part of a large group, you can join us for our estate planning webinar this Thursday, 5 p.m. Again, to RSVP 877-754-6764. But to talk to us today, we'd love to hear from you. 877-943-9673 and the email address patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Next, we're going to go to Bradenton, and we're going to talk to Hunter. Hunter, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hello, good morning.
Hunter, is Hunter your real name?
Yes, sir.
I love the fact that your real name is Hunter, and I see the subject line that you're calling in to discuss. So please, Hunter, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have a question about the law that the governor signed into effect that's going to take place starting July 1st about the not open carry, but permit constitutional carry. Is that going to take away the concealed carry license for those that have already got the license?
So I will tell
How
you.
does it affect?
Yeah, I will tell you right now, I've done absolutely zero research into that new gun law. But we can, Hunter, and we will, and we'll do a follow-up segment on that for you. But the short answer is, just based on what I know, it's going to be really hard for them to take away something that already exists for people. So my short answer is probably not. I don't see how they could pass it and take away CWP. So tell me again what you think the new law does.
I would say that somebody doesn't have to. They don't have to have a license to carry. They still have to go, and they still have to wait the 5 to 7 days to get their firearm. So
Okay.
I didn't know if that was going to change my way, because I have mine, so I can go into any shop and go buy same day and leave same day. I didn't know if that was going to change that or not.
Yeah, so according to the state of Florida's government website, it says on April 3rd, Governor Ron DeSantis signed House Bill 543, which strengthens Floridians' Second Amendment rights by allowing Floridians to carry concealed weapons without a government-issued permit. House Bill 543 goes into effect July 1st, 2023, making Florida the 26th state to enact a constitutional carry legislation. So what are your thoughts on that, Hunter?
I think it's good. I think the violence will go down because, in my head, I'm not going to argue with somebody because I'm going to assume that they automatically have a firearm now. And people are so quick to just shoot somebody nowadays. So I think the crime rate will go down more.
So you think the crime rate will drop because of the governor passing a constitutional carry permission and people presuming, hey, let's presume everyone's armed. Now, I'm from Polk County, and there, if you presume that everyone's armed, you'll rarely be wrong. And our sheriff there reminds people that constantly. If you break into someone's house in Polk County, be prepared to die that day, because people in Polk County are armed. And I think there's some element of truth to that, but I think that it's a matter of enforcing laws so that we keep certain people who are victims of gun violence safe. So I think it's a balancing act. I mean, I do think the Second Amendment, it has its place. It is a precious constitutional right. I mean, if you look at it, it's about forming a well-armed militia in its truest origin. So I don't know that it says so much that you and I can carry, day to day walking about. But I mean, history and tradition says it's been interpreted that way. So I think changing it now would certainly be a tough row to hoe. But I think time will tell. I mean, we'll have to look at the statistics on this, Hunter, and see if crime rates actually drop. I mean, you see some of these shootings, the guns are attained illegally. And I mean, if the guns are purchased illegally, what amount of legislation is going to fix that problem? It's a matter of enforcing the legislation we have, is it not?
Right. I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah. So, but an interesting thing here too, we're the 26th state. So, and there's now a majority of our United States that have said this is a good idea to have this constitutional carry legislation. And the interesting thing is too, in the wake of all this gun violence, the legislation is still passing. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the country shifts on this issue. If the gun violence, especially gun violence targeting children, continues. I mean, I think, children are our most precious commodity here in the United States. And I think if anything, we want to protect them. And I think there was a politician recently who was walking and he was giving an interview. And he was talking about something about banning guns and restricting all guns as he had armed security walking with him. And I was
Don't you just love those conversations?
Yeah. I mean, it's just so I think both sides here it's a little bit like the Disney DeSantis thing. There's room for both sides to give a little bit, for the Second Amendment crowd to give a little bit so that, we can protect children, which I think has to be the utmost priority for us. And I think that on the other side, I think, people can recognize that people take very seriously the right to carry firearms. And I think that it's a matter of saying, hey, where's our common ground? And let's focus on that as opposed to where our differences are and bring about some resolution so that everybody can live safely, right?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Hunter, were you in the military?
No, sir.
The way you say, sir, were you born here in the state of Florida?
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
Yeah, it shows. Hunter, we appreciate you calling in. Okay, have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
All righty, 877-943-9673. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, and we will be happy to answer any and all of your legal questions. We appreciate Hunter bringing that new legislation. Lots of new legislation passing, as the Florida State Legislature is still in session, but that one is a new one for me, strengthening the Second Amendment right for Floridians to carry concealed weapons without a government-issued permit. So stay tuned on how that affects gun violence in the state of Florida. 877-943-9673. Again, I'm local Central Florida Attorney Patrick Smith, and this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Next, we're going to St. Pete, and we're going to talk to David. David, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Hey, David. Did we lose David? It says you're there, David. Can you hear us? All right, we'll come back to David in a beat. So if you have a question, 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. David, if you're there and you can hear us, just give us a call back. Is David back now?
Hear me?
David, you're with us.
Sorry about that. I must have hit the mute button by mistake.
David, I'm pretty angry about it. Let me tell you. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
Go ahead, David.
calm down.
Go ahead, David.
Quick question. Traffic accident, very minor in a neighborhood. I was hit from behind, and I got the ticket.
What did you do?
Well,
Allegedly.
I stopped in the middle of the road. It's a little one-lane residential street. I stopped to put it in reverse to back into the driveway where I was going. And as my front end went to the right, he tried to pass me on the right in a neighborhood and smack dab hit me right behind the front tire of my truck. His driver's corner hit my front tire as I'm attempting to back up. I thought I hit a parked car. And then when I realized I got hit, but my question is, I got cited for improper lane change. And I have requested a court date because I'm definitely going to court.
Okay.
My question is, should I elect the driver improvement school just in case I lose in court in a couple months?
You should hire an attorney, David. That's what you should do.
Well, I know it's too small for an attorney. I can go. I watch court TV enough to go represent myself on this ticket.
Oh my gosh!
Don't you agree?
I don't think scarier words have ever been spoken on the Attorney Patrick. Do you also watch medical dramas and try to do your own surgeries?
No.
Okay, just making sure you're not sitting there. Yeah, my gosh. I would strongly recommend at least speak to an attorney. And I think that's what you're doing now. So here's the thing. It sounds like it probably is accurate. It was an improper lane change. You were driving the wrong direction in a thoroughfare. You were in reverse by admission. So, I mean, clearly you're not driving the right direction.
Well, no. It's a residential street. I'm looking for an address. I'm going to buy a washer dryer. I look for an address. I look to the left. There's the address.
Mm-hmm.
I stop. I put it in reverse in order to back into the driveway. and this clown tries to speed around me on the right. His wheels are probably in the yard.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So let's agree both people made errors here. But
how did I make an error? I stopped and was going to back up into a driveway.
Well, I mean, I see your point, and it's a fair enough issue because you were going to back up into the driveway, and people do that all the time. So, yeah, I mean, it's a close call, but I'm
the one in front. I'm the one that got hit.
I'm not arguing with you about that. I think it's a matter of, if you go to court, you plead your case. As far as, the optioning into any school, I would say speak to a criminal defense attorney. And if you want to talk to one, attorney Matt Kendall, friend of the show, we have him on all the time. I'd be happy to provide you his information so you could say to Matt, hey, should I do this? Or what sort of strategy should I employ? And I think Matt will keep you safe on this. But it sounds like a really crummy situation all the way around. Was anyone hurt in the accident, Dave?
Oh, gosh, no.
Right,
it was
good.
a 2-mile-an-hour crash.
Well, there's that. Now, let me ask you another question. So you said you thought you hit a parked vehicle, right?
Yeah, because I stopped, looked around, looked to my left just to make sure because I knew my right. I knew my front end was going to go to the right, turned the wheel to the left, and then, of course, that moves the back end towards the driveway on the left side, and the front end is gonna, go to the right, and he's trying to pass me in a residential street. Why, I don't know.
Again, like I said, I mean, that definitely doesn't sound like the proper maneuver on his part. He should have waited. I mean, clearly, if your reverse, lights were working, letting him know you were in reverse.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly he made a mistake too. I mean, that comes down to a decision of officer discretion there. And it sounds like you fell on the wrong side of it. Let's say it had been a parked car that you hit, David. What would you have done?
Say that again.
So you said you thought you would hit a parked car. So you hit a parked car. No one's in it. What are you doing?
Oh, I would stop and walk up to the door where the car's parked and say, "Hey, man, I just hit your car."
Well, you have good character, David, and I'm sure you're making your parents proud with that answer. So, well, good luck with it. If you want our help, give us a call off the air at the office next week, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with Attorney Kendall, and he'll give you the best advice he can, okay?
You betcha.
All righty, David. Be safe. Have a great day. All righty, 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. We're live and local. I'm Attorney Patrick Smith. We're discussing the Disney versus DeSantis round 2, really round 3. And if you have a question on that, an opinion to express on that, or any other legal question, 877-943-9673. Again, to reach us to schedule your complimentary consultation with me, Attorney Patrick Smith, at our Sun City Center office. Hello, Vern, running the board down there in Sun City, or Clearwater or Sarasota, 877-754-6764. 877-754-6764 is the office line to call and schedule your complimentary consultation. The reason that we have a Sarasota office is because of this show. We had so many calls coming in from Sarasota. We had several shows where all the calls were from Sarasota. So we really appreciate all you faithful Sarasota listeners and all of our listeners to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. So if you want to schedule to come in and meet with us in person in the confidentiality and privacy of the office, 877-754-6764. But to talk to us today, 877-943-9673. Next, we're going to go to Darren, and we're going to talk about a firearm in a vehicle. Darren, how can we help you today? Darren, are you there? All right. We don't have Darren. We'll come back and try Darren here in a moment. So 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of today's show. We'd love to talk to you. 877-943-9673. Or you can email me. You can always email me your questions. Patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, we just got an email following up on for those of you who are later to the show, we talked a bit about our caller last week, Frank from Largo, and we had a wonderful listener listen in. This is Frank, who lost his longtime significant other and was kind of struggling with it, like a lot of people do. No shame in that. It's very typical. And a listener called or emailed in and said, "Hey, for anyone out there who needs help, there's a grief support group at the First United Methodist Church in Tarpon Springs." And we actually just got another email that says there's a wonderful grief program called Grief Share that is offered at many churches throughout the state. And they're suggesting that anyone grieving the loss of a loved one just sort of Google Grief Share near me, and get involved sooner as opposed to later. I think that's a great idea. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out for help and don't be afraid. And apparently Grief Share is another very popular program throughout the state. The point is, if you reach out for help, there's help out there to help you through the passing of a spouse or a family member and help you process through the trauma that is that grief. So Grief Share, and apparently a search of Grief Share near me will give you some options of resources available near you. So 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. That's your number to talk to us today. Let's go to my home county and talk to Michael in Lakeland. Michael, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Hey, Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Michael. How's Polk County today?
It's pretty good. Just riding around in my truck, getting ready to go to a job site this morning, and I was thinking about like the calls that the people had that you've had a couple of callers prior to me, and I think that people have a common misconception about the cost associated with attorney. And a lot of the time it doesn't cost a lot of money to, like the gentleman that was talking about the traffic incident. When you do a consultation with the attorney or whatnot, and they give you the legal advice, or even if they show up for court, you're talking maybe, sometimes it's a few $100 or something like that. And I think people just think that it's just not like affordable to them, to where they have, they can't go through, they just don't seek legal advice. They try to, like that gentleman said, he wanted to self-represent, which I would highly recommend not doing that. But like those kind of things. I just wanted to chat with you about that, and then the gun stuff for Disney.
Well, I agree with you, because here's the thing. So one of the things I'd actually lined up to discuss on today's show, and we always have more than we can get to, and it's just a matter of trying to get the most out of the hour that we can. But one of the topics I was going to address was sort of these pro forma doc services and estate planning in general, because it seems like fees are all over the state. I had an intern do a project actually, it was Peter, the intern, when Peter was on the show, and Peter's getting ready to start law school now. But Peter went around and kind of surveyed the state as far as fees, and attorneys are all over the place. And we've seen things where people are charging upwards of north of $500 some places just for a consultation, just to talk to an attorney. At our office, it's complimentary. You can talk to an attorney about your estate planning free of charge. And the fees for, sometimes just simple wills can be, thousands of dollars, and people charge the fee that they think they are entitled to. But I think that it's intimidating to a lot of people. And someone asked me a great question at the Military Order of World Wars, where they said, how old do you recommend someone consider getting a will? And I said 18. And they said, really, that young? I said, yes, because everyone needs a will. And that's why we price the will at $75. It's to your point, Michael. We think that it needs to be priced so that any kid straight out of high school can afford to at least have a will. And I think that's why we do the planning, and we do the $695 trust package. It's a matter of the fact that, we don't think estate planning should be something that you bill by the pound. It should be something that you pay for, sort of this laser accurate, pinpoint, precise, efficient document that optimally addresses your family's needs. And that's why we charge flat fees for that, because that's sort of what I pride myself in, is doing the optimally efficient document for you and your family. And because of that, we can pass along that savings to the client. And I think that is a great example from the estate planning side of it. You're talking about the criminal law side of it. Talking to an attorney may not be cost prohibitive. It's not like you're retaining them for a Capital One murder charge. You can speak to an attorney for a lot less money than it would cost to defend a Capital One murder charge. And you hear people thinking in their brain that it must be expensive. And that's because that sort of propaganda, I'll say, probably too strong a word, but that sort of misinformation is out there.
It is. And the estate planning as well. I did mine when I was in my 20s. My wife and I took care of everything.
Well, good for you.
Something was to happen to us. And I like to plan. I don't like surprises, so I wouldn't want that thrust upon anything. And especially if people have assets, there's things that need to be addressed and talked about with your parents, and if they have things like that, and if there's other kids involved, and just things that could happen at the end of life. But the government, like when you were talking about the gun laws of Disney and whatnot, I think people on the Second Amendment, they're just so hesitant to want to give any leeway because they have such a distrust for the government, and they feel like that they're like, I don't say like distrust in general terms, but for like gun laws and things like that, like if you give an inch, they take a mile type of thing. People that I've spoken to.
And Michael, I understand that, and I completely get it. And if it were for any other reason than protecting our children, I would be questioning it the same, because I told you, like I said, I'm raised during the Reagan era, instantly suspicious of the government. But at the same time, protecting our children has to be our utmost priority. How can we not agree on that?
It's funny. It's funny about this because my wife is a school teacher, so it makes me apprehensive at times because I think of her and her safety and the children's safety and stuff like that. So it really does. It's kind of a double-edged sword to me, like the give and the take. But I think about in Texas, whenever that the people went in there and shot up the school, and that resonated with me. Like I hit home, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your wife's service as a school teacher. And Michael, we appreciate you calling in. Good luck at the job site.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a great day. 877-943-9673. Let's quickly jump to Ron in Seminole. Ron, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Hey, Ron, what's going on?
I called for two reasons. I called a couple of weeks ago, and you couldn't answer my question, but you said you put me in touch with an attorney in Texas, and he answered my question, so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, great. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out real good. And I mentioned when I talked to you on the phone that I'm writing a book called God, Prayer, and Conservatism, America's Only Hope. And I told you I was having problems getting a
And hey, Ron, just as a heads up, I have about a minute left.
Okay, I wonder if I had to call back next week.
Yeah, why don't you do that, Ron? I don't want you to be rushed. I can feel what you want to say, so just call back next week, and we'll spend a little more time going over this on the air. Okay?
Okay, good. Right. Yeah, because it's important what I want to say. I want to comment on the thing with DeSantis.
All right. Well, we will open up the phone lines next week, and I appreciate your thank you, Ron. Okay?
Okay, well, thanks again. I really appreciate your great work.
Oh, I appreciate your kind words, Ron. Thank you. You too. All right, and a special congratulations to our very own Dr. Michael Lang, who is celebrating 30 years of broadcasting today with Ask the Doctor. So he will be on next. And as a follow-up, also lots of listeners reaching out this week. Like I said, we had the grief support group. And then another listener reached out and said, hey, you always play the national anthem. And for you 102.5 The Bone listeners, a lot of you know our very own Johnny B actually had the privilege of singing the national anthem at a Rays game recently. So they said, hey, can you make that happen? Can you, instead of playing your normal national anthem, can you play the Johnny B version? So I actually reached out to Johnny B, spoke to him, and got his blessing. So today we're going to have a very special rendition of the national anthem brought to you by our very own Johnny B. We'll be playing that here momentarily. To be part of next week's program, 877-943-9673. So if you couldn't get in this week, write the number down and give us a call next week, 877-943-9673. And again, to reach me at the law office during the week, 877-754-6764. Check out our website, attorneypatricksmith.com. You can listen to the podcast of the previous shows. You can email us questions. Check out our office locations. And again, the call to schedule your complimentary consultation, 877-754-6764. Now let's everyone sit back and enjoy the national anthem as performed by our very own Johnny B.
The preceding was sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. W282CI Tampa,